The stock market's improving, or is it? Are the stock and bond markets showing us the definition of what they call risk on? Let's take a look at the metrics to find out. So if we look at equities over the past week, you can see this is the definition of risk on. Everything's up, and the highest risk equities in ARK Invest are up the most, up almost 11%. Small caps up second, up almost 6%, followed by the NASDAQ, S&P 500, and the Dow. This is the definition of a healthy-looking stock market. And what if we look back over the past month? Well, you can see just about 3 weeks ago, we hit bottom, and things have just launched higher since then. This looks really, really good. What about year-to-date? Well, year-to-date, you can see we had a very nice rally in the first half of the year, a little bit more than half of the year, and then things started to really kind of falter. But what did we have right here? We had a very well-formed bottom with the markets shooting higher off that bottom. That's how markets act when they come off of a bottom. This looks great. And what if we look back over the past 5 years? Well, over the past 5 years, you can see NASDAQ leading the way. That's healthy, followed by the S&P, followed by the Dow, followed by small caps, and then ARK Invest is finally in the positive. It was selling for less than it was 5 years ago back here, which was the time to be buying it.
I'm afraid to say
And how do the bottom dynamics look? Well, if we look at the bottom dynamics, you can see where we're at right now. We had a very strong bottom confirmation right back here where this blue line, the bottom confirmation line, was up here in the high 90% range. The confidence level, the equity risk confidence level, this dark dashed line was also up here at very high levels. So we had a very strong bottom confirmation signal here. And that was after we had a very strong bottom forming indication. So that's what you want to see. Bottom forming indication right here at the bottom confirmation following the bottom. This looks great. And where are we now? Well, last week I wasn't inclined to predict anything because, as you can see, this was moving sideways, even though this was very high. But I said if I were going to pick, I would say it was going to go higher, but I wasn't comfortable doing that. Well, we did go higher. And where are we now? Well, the bottom confirmation signal is moving higher. The confidence has dropped way off, but it's also starting to go higher. So to me, this looks like we're going higher next week. And what about risk versus opportunity? Well, if we take a look at risk versus opportunity, you can see that the opportunity level is shooting straight up here. This is great. And risk acceleration is dropping like a rock. Now, risk tends to be a little slower to respond. It's still hanging out up here, but I would expect this to start to fall going into next week, going forward. So we'll have to see how this plays out. But this looks really, really good.
don't wanna let you down.
And what about equity versus safety? Well, if we take a look at this, let's follow the NASDAQ because that really gives us a sense of how the appetite is for higher risk equities in the marketplace. And if we take a look, you can see it's been on a wild ride. And if you go back even further in time, it was still on a wild ride. And as I've been saying in my last few videos, when you have this kind of volatility going on, you're typically at or near the bottom. Now, what I like here is that the NASDAQ 100 bottomed out here in 9th place, moved up to 8th place, and has been going higher for the past 3 weeks. This is great. I love the fact that this is up here in 2nd place. It's the only thing that's beating it out is very long duration treasuries, which tells me the treasury market is also healthy. So we have healthy equity market and a healthy treasury market. This is nirvana. And if we take a look at cash, love this. You can see it was up here in 1st place. In fact, it was in 1st place before this. It started to fall, came back up to 2nd, and then last week fell to 4th, and this week is down at 8th. This is fabulous. And what about small caps? Well, you can see that there was no risk appetite back here for higher risk equities like small caps. And then what happened this past week? Small caps went from last place up to 5th place. This is very healthy. Now let's take a look at how the safe haven assets have been performing. And what you really want to see here is you want to see cash down near the bottom, which it is. And you can see that SHV, short duration treasuries, are down here almost in 10th place, and intermediate bonds are in 7th place. So this is really starting to look healthy for the treasuries. And in fact, let's take a look at longer duration treasuries. You can see that we've got a nice setup here. You've got very short duration treasuries down here, intermediates here, long bonds, 20-year TLT here, and the longest duration treasuries are up here at the top. This is a very healthy looking treasury market. So as I said before, healthy treasuries, healthy stocks. This looks fabulous. And how does this show up in the buying and selling pressure? Well, this kind of confirms the pictures that I've just painted previously. Look at this. You've got the Dow, a nice rally, buying pressure above the selling pressure. So the buying pressure is this solid gray line. Selling pressure is this solid orange line. You can see for the S&P 500, again, very nice rally, buying pressure, not only above the selling pressure, but shooting higher here at the end. And then for the NASDAQ 100, same picture, very nice rally. Buying pressure has been going up since back here. That's really, really good. And then ARK Invest, which was really struggling, you can see what's happened here. The buying pressure came up above the selling pressure, kind of traded places here a little bit, but now it's shooting higher and the price is moving higher. This looks really good. What about small caps? Well, small caps were struggling, as you can see here, and you can see that in the buying pressure, which fell below the selling pressure, just like ARK Invest. But now recently, the price has been shooting higher and the selling pressure is moving higher. So this looks really good. And how does this show up in the sector rankings? Now, every week I talk about this. These tend to move fairly slowly, so they kind of tell you where the market's been. They don't really point much to where it's going until you're well into it. So you can see that cash was way up here at the top a week ago, and consumer discretionary was way down here at the bottom, and treasuries were up here at the top with gold, and consumer staples were up here. So this looks fairly unhealthy when you look at this. Now, if we come forward to this week, cash is falling. That looks good. Treasuries are falling. That's good. Consumer discretionary is falling. That's not good. But consumer staples are falling. What I do like here is you can see that the NASDAQ 100 is now up here, where a week ago it was all the way down here. So this is real progress. And you can see that there's a little bit of a tilt toward higher risk equities here. Now, ARK Innovation, because this moves so slowly, is still stuck down here at the bottom. But what if we look at rank acceleration? This tends to give you a more real, don't want to call it real time, but it gives you a more timely view of what's going on in the markets. And you can see that last week cash was up here, gold was up here, but consumer discretionary was also up here, and consumer staples had moved way down here. So this was already giving you an indication that there was a tilt toward risk. You can see ARK and the NASDAQ 100 up here, small caps, emerging tech companies here. This is starting to show a healthy risk appetite. Well, where are we this week? Well, if we look at this week, you got technology, you got the NASDAQ 100 right up here. You can see that cash has collapsed all the way down to here. Consumer discretionary fell back a bit. I'm not that concerned. And then where is ARK Innovation? Let's see, ARK Innovation was here, and now it's moved up one notch. So this is good. So this looks very healthy going into next week. And what if we look at treasuries? Well, if you look at treasuries, they look kind of like equities. You have a very healthy risk appetite here. You've got longest duration EDV right up here at the top, up almost 4.5% for the week. You've got TLT, the long bonds, up second, up 3.25% for the week. And then they fall off as duration. This is a very healthy bond risk appetite. And what if we look over the past month? Well, if you look back over the past month, you can see that we've got a very healthy risk appetite, just like we have over the last 5 days. What about year to date? Well, year to date, you can see that we had a horrible treasury market here. We bottomed here, and we've had a really nice strong rally coming off this bottom. This looks very, very healthy. And then if we look back over the past 5 years, you can see where we are. We have a long way to go just to get back to where we were 5 years ago. And if we get there, and when we get there, that's going to result in some very, very nice gains here, with EDV, the longest duration treasuries, being down 32.84% from where they were 5 years ago. So just to get back to even, they have to go up about, 50%? This is great. Well, how does all of this show up in the buying and selling pressure? Well, you can see, just like equities, we've had some very nice rallies going on here. And you can see that the buying pressure is moving higher here for short duration treasuries. What about intermediate treasuries? Again, rising prices, buying pressure shooting higher. And what about 7 to 10 year intermediate to long treasuries? Well, you can see we've had a very nice rally here. And while the buying pressure has been falling, it's currently moving higher. So that's good. What about 20 year, the long bond? Well, very nice rally going on here. And the buying pressure, as you can see, currently shooting higher. So this looks great. And how's that inverted yield curve looking? Well, I'm showing you this. I skipped it last week because it's kind of getting a little bit long in the tooth. But how is this looking right now? Well, the red line shows you where we were a month ago. And we were less inverted a month ago than we are now, which is the blue line. Why is this happening? Well, the markets control the long end down here, where you can see the 20 or the long bonds. The markets control these rates, these yields. And the markets are basically voting and saying, hey, Mr. Fed, you need to lower rates, and we think inflation has peaked out. So the rates are dropping here, which is causing these bonds to go up, move higher, as you saw earlier. But the Fed is slow to respond. So these rates at this end, where the Fed controls them, are not going to drop very quickly until the Fed acts. Now, what does this cause to happen? Well, what this causes is, if you look at the inversion here, we're now 45 basis points, almost 46 basis points inverted, where just a few weeks ago we were only 15 basis points inverted. So the yield curve is going to get more inverted before it becomes uninverted, because the markets are going to lead the Fed. And you can see what the markets think right here. 100% probability that the Fed leaves rates alone on December 13th when they meet. It'll be interesting to see how this changes between now and then. And just to look at this over time, you can see how the yield curve was really, really inverted back here, came up to about 15 or so basis points, and then now it's become more inverted again. So again, this is going to play out over time. The markets will vote their way, and if the Fed follows, then we become uninverted.
Feel like I'm afraid.
And what about gold? Well, gold had one heck of a rally here. You can see that. But as I've been saying for the last several weeks, gold is certainly losing its luster. Now, it had a little bit of a rally attempt here, but where are we? Well, if we look at the buying pressure, peaked out back here and has been falling until here, just past this bottom. And now it's starting to come up again, but is falling off again. I don't hold out much hope for this unless there's more world contagion going forward. I don't think inflation is going to be an issue. If it were, gold would be going much higher. And the other thing that gold hedges is geopolitical risk. And we certainly have a lot of that going on these days.
You can have.
And what about Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin has been on an absolute tear, as you can see here. You can see the buying pressure through the roof, off the charts. Now it corrected itself here, kind of pulled back, and is falling lately. And the price has been a little bit wobbly here. So I don't know if this is just taking a breather to kind of catch up with itself. Will it continue higher? I think there's a lot riding on the BlackRock ETFs being approved by the SEC. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that.
If it's only you have.
So look, as you can see, equities and bonds have continued the move higher that started 3 weeks ago. And we're seeing the improving health of the equity and treasury markets across the board in the metrics. Inflation's starting to show signs that it's peaked out and could continue heading lower. Now we just need the Fed to figure that out and lower rates at the short end, which is where they control things. Until next week, I'm Calvin Rose, and thank you for watching Invest Smarter. That's all for now.
Stay up all night, gotta work now. Make up my mind, then it turns around. Say that I'm fine till I burn out. Thinking this money sounded so nice. Ambush here written in the strobe lights. Pay anything for the high price. This life feels like the sunny water. Wet my lips, but the sun's stronger. Pour it out, if I'm being honest. It's just not everything you promised. Running out, drying out, what did you say? What did you say when I told you? Maybe this wrist wasn't gold proof. Packing my bags like it's all true. Hard to make friends when I'm focused on all these bars that I'm holding. I like the cold, but it's lonely, yeah. This life feels like